Taylor to You is a podcast where your host Taylor Doherty talks with individuals who fascinate her as she's inspired by the greatest gift us humans have to offer, our story. Each guest story is unique and tailored in its own way, and that's exactly what Taylor loves about them.
I lost my mom 2 weeks after I turned 20 years old. It was just devastating, and on her deathbed she told my dad that I need to go to culinary school. And like when I was in high school, I took every single culinary elective they offered. By sophomore year I was done. I took them all. And so I actually junior and senior year was creating an elective program for my district. And
Gosh, you were creating things from day one. You're like, if you're not
I was an entrepreneur from day one.
I'll give it to you. Hey, you want to cook cake too? Let's start a class.
Exactly.
This is your host, Taylor Doherty, and this episode is tailored to having a zest for life with Mila Furman. Mila started blogging and her company Girl in the Kitchen 7 years ago, and she really had no idea it would be what it is today. Mila is an entrepreneur, private chef, blogger, wife, mother, now friend of mine. I mean, we really had so much fun. And she also just shared so much about her life with me. So thank you for that, Mila. She was so open about her mother passing at a young age and how her mom played a role in her culinary career, what it was like when she immigrated to the U.S. when she was only 7 years old. Also, how to cope with anxiety. We both kind of shared our experiences with that. All things cooking, of course, including a few of my own cooking fails. And that when in doubt, zest it out. Stay tuned and you'll know what that's all about. We also bonded over Bravo and The Real Housewives. Good food, done right is her line, and she is doing it right and more. Please enjoy Mila Furman.
You might have to bleep me.
There's no filter with this.
Excellent.
It's all about everyone's story.
Good.
And be you, girl.
Okay, can I please tell you that I think since February, there may have been a total of 3 days that I didn't get an Amazon package.
I think that's everyone right now, though. My buzzer goes off every day. Little things. I see something random, but truly,
I'm like, it's easy. I'm like, oh, I'm out of dish soap. Amazon, it's like $19 for the same bottle at Target is $4, but whatever.
For
you
sure.
know? Yeah, I'm a big Amazoner, and it makes my life so easy. Even with culinary stuff, like we needed ramekins. It's gonna be here in 2 days. I don't have to go searching for them.
Well,
Quarantine's been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been so interesting for everyone, but you haven't stopped, like you said. Mm-mm. You're on social. And that was what we were talking about when you actually got here in my little apartment studio.
I love your little studio apartment.
Oh my gosh, my roommate Symphony is currently just in her room, probably hearing us laugh. But I have seen you on social. I see you every day. You pop up. I mean, your content's amazing, but it's truly, I feel like I already know you, and that's what's so great. I think that's what I think you've made it as like an influencer or someone who's really doing it well with their content because their users or followers feel that connection.
I'm so grateful you said that. One of the hardest things for me is to always be two things, and that's authentic and have integrity. And I
love that.
I never ever wanted to come off as somebody who cannot be related to, right? Like the other day, Friday night, I made this story that I found a lot of people loved, and it was
I probably saw it.
Did you see the one where I talked about my fun little movie night with my kids?
Yes! Oh my gosh, and how your son, Marcel, threw up on you. Oh, I guess sorry everyone, I just literally jumped to the best part. But it was too good. And it's I had to scream it. But it was so funny because I didn't know where that story was going. I thought, the kids are screaming, husband didn't like the movie. I did not know where it was going to go.
I love that. I have two kids. So I have almost 8-year-old daughter, Charlie, who's literally trying to be me on steroids. And then I have a Tasmanian devil who is like the light in my eyes, Marcel, who's 3. And he's literally a terror. But I talk about a mother's love. Like my daughter, she's going to be giving me hell. But my son is I'm going to be laying my head on him when he's 20. I'm Russian. So Marcel, basically, he only speaks English because of my daughter, because of Charlie. But it's he'll say in Russian to me, skaska, which means fairy tales, skaska on the phone. And he'll speak a little immigrant because he'll intermix English and Russian. It's the funniest freaking thing.
Didn't Charlie too have a Russian accent?
Oh, Charlie had a Russian accent. Charlie spoke oh, I love you, mama, so much. And my friends would be my American friends who didn't know. They're why does your child have an accent and you don't? I'm Because she's an immigrant. Like,
So do you speak, because you moved here when you were 7.
I did.
From
Moldova.
Moldova. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know why I couldn't figure out how to say that. And then your husband's also Ukrainian.
Yes.
So it's really interesting that you both, so did he move here later in life too?
It's really funny. Everybody's like, did you meet him there? I'm like, yeah, I was a fucking child bride. Like,
Yeah.
no.
They never moved. They never been married at 7.
Yeah, I was married off at 7. We take
Yeah.
shit really seriously in Moldova. Yeah, he came here when he was 13. But
Wow.
the funny thing is, so there was a really big immigration for Jewish refugees from the previous USSR. And so we all emigrated here like between 88 and 90, basically like the gates opened essentially. Like you could go to America if you're like sponsored. So like my aunt had already been living here since the 1970s. So she sponsored us because my mom was her sister, obviously, and my grandmother was still with us. So we came here like on a sponsorship because we were refugees, because we were running away from religious persecution in Russia or in Moldova. And yeah, so there's like a lot, like Helen Birkin, who you interviewed, also same story. We all emigrated within the same amount of time. And there's like a huge
It's
Russian.
such a leap.
Yeah, and like when I came here, I was in such a culture shock, because I was like, if you can imagine a person the polar opposite of me, that's who I was. I was like tiny and like really soft-spoken and really shy and terrified, because I never went to school in Russia. You started school on your 7th birthday. We left on my 7th birthday in secret, obviously. And we emigrated. So we lived in Austria for 2 weeks when we emigrated. And then we lived in Italy for almost 4 months when we emigrated.
It's like The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Picturing like,
yeah.
you know.
It's totally. You know, I romanticized it in my head, obviously, but when we came here, it was just terrifying, because for the first time in my life, I had to be away from my mom and my grandma, and I had to go to school, which was really hard. I didn't know a word of English except hi and thank you. Kids were really fucking brutal. Kids were really mean. Even then, like, we think about bullying now. Trust me, bullying is a whole different story when you're the immigrant kid who's got short boy hair.
Oh my God, well, we have to see a picture.
Oh,
Archive
God, I'll send it to you.
You were beautiful. I'm sure you literally were so beautiful. And everyone was like,
but okay.
You're probably sitting here like, oh my God, the immigrant. They're like, wow, who is this girl from Moldova?
I did not look
Mila.
like that. No,
Is that how 7-year-olds talk?
For sure. There's a picture where my arms are the same thickness as my legs. I was so tiny that, like, so in like a lot of cultures, especially in like the Eastern European culture, you can't, if as a skinny kid, it's like your worst nightmare. And my brother and I were these skinny kids. And now I'm like, well, thank fucking God. Like, my genetics, knock on wood, have got me through some, like, you know, really bad hangover eating, you know, like really bad junk food years.
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, it's got me through some, like, you know, shit. So, but like, if you were skinny, you were just, the doctors like didn't understand what's wrong with you. And like, they would literally tell you to like feed your kid this heavy caloric diet. But so the crazy thing was, the biggest irony of me growing up to be a chef was that I didn't eat anything as a kid. I had no interest in food. Like, the things I loved eating, which was my mom's and my grandmother's like Jewish chicken soup. That was my favorite food. So when I came here, I went mute for 6 months. The culture shock, just everything, just the shock. My parents they didn't know what to do. Imagine being an immigrant yourself and your child. Like, I always put myself in my parents' place. And here's your child who's 7 years old, who is mute, who refuses to talk. What the fuck do you do?
Oh, I'd feel so sad inside.
My mom was 33 years old. The thing was that we were coming from an extremely good situation. Like, my dad we were really well off, and like, we were really well connected. So to leave a situation like that where you're really well off and you have all the connections, and to go to nothing, to be an immigrant with
because you
nothing.
give up your rights, like
you give up everything. We had to sell everything so that we can, you know, live here. And
wow, I commend them so much.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So I think about it now, you know, my mom was 33, younger than I am now. I was 7. My brother was 13. And they moved to another country without knowing the language, without knowing the culture, without knowing anything, you know?
It's such an unknown. You just truly, you get on the plane, you don't know where you're going.
But they knew that they wanted a better life for us. That was truly why they moved. They wanted my brother and I to have a better life. So when I came here, obviously I spoke it. And then when I went mute, my mom was so devastated. And my aunt, who had lived here, had this brilliant idea that she said, here's the deal. For every week that you don't cry and you start talking something, just start talking, preferably English, I will give you $2 a week.
Some bribes from good old auntie.
Motivation money, mate. Money motivation was like my biggest thing. And it worked. And I started talking. And so my mom was really important that she learned English from me. Because she knew that I was going to give her like the purest form of English because I was so young that like I was going to pick it up like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And by the time my husband and I met, he was in the Russian community all the time. I wasn't because I didn't want to date anybody that I knew I was going to marry because I didn't want anybody knowing my business. So I didn't date within the Russian community. So nobody knew me within the Russian community. And
I love that strategy.
We're all like well connected and we're all like incestual and in each other's fucking business. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want anybody knowing my past. I'm going to go ahead and, you know, it's like 90210 with us. Like everybody fucking knew everything. And everybody's like either slept with each other or wants to sleep with each other or like wants to murder. Like it was just ridiculous. And I didn't want that. So when my husband and I met.
You wanted it when you're 20s, but, well, you guys met at 19.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a younger.
Exactly. And we met and it was really bizarre because he didn't know who I was. My husband knew everybody because he was the promoter.
Oh, wow.
He was the club promoter. So he knew everybody. He knew my older brother for years. So he came up to my older brother and he asked me who's the chick with the ass. And so my husband and I met. And
that is amazing. Wait, so your husband.
My husband came up to my older brother, who's also older than my husband by a year, but whatever, yes. Who he's known for years and said, who's the chick with the ass? Because he thought I was related to my sister-in-law. Because we kind of looked alike. We both had dark hair. And it was dark as shit. You know, and
what club was this in Chicago?
It was Zentra. Zentra's no longer around, but it was so you know.
I was gonna say I probably wouldn't even know the club scene.
No, you wouldn't.
A dive bar.
Yeah. No. It was like a loungy club. It was really cool, and I was 3.5 martinis in, apple martinis in, of course, because that's where you can't taste the alcohol. And I remember I saw him walk in. And, like, I whispered to my sister. Well, I thought I was whispering, but I wasn't whispering. To my sister-in-law, I said, I'm going to marry him.
And that is exactly why you and I didn't drink on this podcast. Because we don't sound like that.
And that's exactly what I did.
That was the first night, though.
That was So we actually met many times before. We just didn't know it. But, yes.
Okay. Sliding doors.
Totally sliding doors.
I always think that. Everything
totally
happens for, I think also too, I'm a firm believer, well, I this is my mantra, I say it, I think on every episode. Everything happens for a reason, but I think timing too is really, really important.
I mean, if you want to talk about like a serious thing, timing is everything. Timing was everything. My husband and I started dating actually on my brother's wedding anniversary, July 5th, 2002. And I lost my mom 2 months later. And so like my husband was there for me for everything, and he was just my support. He was my rock. He was the only person I wanted to be with. He was like the only thing that made me happy. He was the only thing that gave me, I know this is gonna sound so sad, but he gave me a reason to live. Like nothing matters.
Such a low point, and I mean,
yeah, it was.
Thank you for sharing that.
I lost my mom 2 weeks after I turned 20 years old, and it was just devastating. And on her deathbed, she told my dad that I need to go to culinary school.
Mila, timing, everything happens for a reason.
But
is that what kind of pushed you to do it?
Yeah. So you know, the funny thing is, most kids come home and watch cartoons after school, and my mom and I would sit down and watch Great Chefs of the World on PBS. And I remember I asked her, I'm like, Mama, like, you're not going to make any of these fancy dishes. Like, what do you? She's like, yeah, but I learned things. And I learned, like, and it was just so amazing how much she knew. But it was all because of, like, generations of women had passed it on to her. Like, my grandmother's grandmother passed it on to her. My grandmother passed it on to my mom, you know. And I wasn't passed down anything, by the way, because I was the annoying little pest in the kitchen. And, like, I learned everything by watching them. And then like I remember going into culinary school and just remembering like my mom was doing like the same things we were doing, but just by heart and like by knowing. And like just like when my mom and my grandmother cooked, it was like the most beautiful symphony you've ever seen. Because it was like these two women that just like joked together and like yelled at each other and like just knew what the other one was doing, like, and knew the next movement. It was like the most beautifully orchestrated dance, you know?
Were there no recipes involved?
No recipes involved. And I remember my grandmother would always say, my grandmother spoke Yiddish. My mom and my grandmother spoke Yiddish, Romanian, and Russian. And I understood Yiddish and Russian. And so when they didn't want my brother and I to understand, they would speak Romanian. But I remember but they spoke primarily in Yiddish to each other. And I remember my grandmother said to my mom, like, you are the only person that I've ever met that hates baking and is so freaking good at it. And my mom like I remember like she'd be rolling out like layers for a cake, for a Napoleon cake. And she'd be like, I fucking hate this. Like,
wow.
but it was so good.
Baking's hard. I mean,
baking's really hard and it was so easy for her.
See, I think that probably is it sounds like is what led you there, but it came so natural to her.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because as you talked about your cooking journey, you said you didn't even like food. You still were so picky.
No, I didn't like food.
It all comes so natural.
But it was like, yeah, it was like, I don't
you
like
have your mom in you. I love that.
do. And like when I was in high school, I took every single culinary like elective they offered. By sophomore year, I was done. I took them all. They never had that happen. And so I actually, junior and senior year, was creating an elective program for my district. Me and another kid. And
you were creating things from day one. You're like, if you're not
I
going
was
to give
an
me it,
entrepreneur from day one.
I'll give it to you. Hey, you want to cook cake too? Let's start a class.
Exactly. I mean, they asked me to do it and I was like the guinea pig. And I remember, so now the school's in downtown Kendall, which is where I went to culinary school. And my mom said, if you're going to go to culinary school, this is like junior year in high school, this is where you're going to go. So I was the girliest little fucking girl you'll ever meet. I had perfect nails. I had the makeup. I had the hair. Like, I was a girly girl. I was a palmer. I was a girly girl.
I
was a palmer, you know? And casual. And I remember like senior year, I went to go visit Kendall. And I remember I come home, my mom was like, so how was it? You know, I'm like, oh my God, it was awful. She's like, why? I'm like, these girls, Mom, they have no nails. You're not allowed. My mom was a manicurist. And she promised me she'd do my nails every week since I was 10. So I was getting manicures.
Wow.
And she's
that's great treatment. Great food, manicures, gosh.
You'd think I was living in a spa.
Yeah.
Except I was getting a daily, case of whoop ass.
Yeah. They were speaking Romanian on your back. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I told my mom, like, they're not, like, they don't do anything to make themselves pretty. And like, ew, they have to wake up like 4 a.m. What is that? And my mom was like,
real world.
Yeah. My mom was like, all right, it'll come to you when it comes to you. And like, I remember I sat down with my mom on the couch and said, Mom, like, what if I go into the beauty industry? What if I go into like cosmetology? She said to me, just remember one thing. Whatever you do, you are the best at it and it's your own. She said, whatever you do, it is your own. You are never to work for somebody else in the end. She said, whatever you do, you're going to stand on your own 2 feet. She said, yes, you should always have a successful man by your side, but you should be successful. And like, that was something that was really shocking to me that like my mom said that, because I don't think my mom wasn't necessarily a feminist or anything like that, but she did run our family. Like my dad ran the finances. My mom ran like the family, you know? And my mom basically kind of drilled it into my head. And I think she knew that like, I like my own rules and I don't like having to be accountable to anybody, and I don't like to like answer to anybody, and it took me a long fucking time to figure that shit out.
Because I know you did work in corporate world for a little bit, and kind of going back to how Mark, your husband, was your rock through your mom passing, and you mentioned that when you were wanting to leave the corporate world, he basically was like, do it and give it 110%.
Yeah.
He so believed in you.
He believed in me.
Like, I mean, gosh, I need some wisdom from this guy.
He believed in me before I believed in myself. He believed in me. I think he saw what everybody else saw in me that I never saw in me. That to this day, I'm just like kind of flabbergasted that this is what it is, because I don't see myself as that either. I started talking to him more and more seriously. And at the time, the goal was not private chefing. This is the craziest thing. Private chefing was a oops.
Wow.
Private
what
chef
a great
ring
oops it
was an oops. I catered for people. I did meal plans for people before, but I never did that. And the goal was for me to be a full-time blogger because I was already blogging and I was just like on the brink of making good money. Like making good money for, I hate to say this, but like for what I thought a girl, because I just didn't think I could do what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm just
But
telling
I think
you
that's really important too to recognize. Like, I think for me too, I try to just remind myself, you know, to push myself harder and harder, and I hope I'm satisfied. But I think I'm always gonna be like my own biggest critique.
Yep.
Or
But
is that even my
critic?
Critic. Thank you. That's another thing, Mila.
And you're not even drinking.
I'm telling you, I am not one for phrases either. I like make up my own phrases, so I just start to saying
Me
them
too.
and act like it just like, you know, it
Same.
worked.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Don't worry. Well, I won't correct you anymore. Yeah. So like, I wanted to be like the biggest and the baddest food blogger, and I realized that I could make good money on it. And I remember at the time, my only goal was to be able to pay for the mortgage because that was your biggest expense. And so I figured that if I could pay for the mortgage, then we'll be good.
Or like all of a sudden, like I'm, you know,
but everything
I'm putting in a lot.
Now, the dream to like be on TV was always there. I had no idea how I could make it happen. Like, there was no stepping stone in front of me. I was just blogging and recipe testing and recipe developing and doing everything and photographing and videos and doing lives. And then I had a client who asked me if I would be her private chef. And I remember I came to my husband and I said, I don't want to fucking be a private chef. He's like, what are you, an idiot? He's like, why? What's wrong with you? He's like, you're already fucking cooking all day long for us. Why don't you go get paid for it?
True.
I was like, dude, I don't know. I don't want to be somebody's bitch. He's like, bitch? He's like, you watch your Real Housewives of every county?
Oh my gosh, yes. Do you want to who I'm picturing right now? As you said, like, I don't want to be their bitch. Is Lisa Vanderpump, chef, like years ago, but almost it was like he ran the show.
Yeah.
He would tell her what they're eating. He would tell like, Adrienne Maloof, you know, across the street. She couldn't come over.
Oh, I remember that.
Like,
that's
cute.
Right.
So when I picture private chef, sometimes I think of
that was season 1 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Oh, I'm like an OG.
Same. But you know what? In my opinion, if we're really going to talk about Housewives.
Yes.
God.
I wanted to ask you at some point who your favorite Housewives was. So I'm glad it came up organically.
Fuck. Damn you. That's Vanderpump. It's.
What?
I love her.
Really?
I love her because I think she's playing a character. I think she's playing what everybody wants her to play.
Which is so funny because with your, you know, your company, your concept, you're so authentic. And you're like, I'm not going to play a part.
I don't play a part, but I think I don't know. I love her because I aspire to be her in a sense, you know, because she's a multi-gajillionaire.
Well, she is a huge entrepreneur. So I totally get that mindset.
Right. Like, I aspire to be her in that sense, but like, who's my favorite? Oh, God. Like, I mean, I love Sonia.
Okay, I was just going to say, where are New Yorkers?
I love Sonia. Leah, I actually didn't think I'd like, but I really liked her. Look, here's the deal. I've been an OG since day one. Like, I literally watched them when it was called, like, Behind the Golden Gates or something.
Yes.
Which was season 1 of Orange County. And, like, there were so many OGs then. Like, I mean.
Now they're all kind of gone. Vicky, Tamara.
But Tamara wasn't even an OG. Tamara, I think, joined, like, 3rd season. Vicky was the OG. And then there was, like, Lori. You remember Lori? Who was, like, poor.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, I love Andy Cohen. I love, if I could have his job, you know, where he literally just sits with all them all day, I think it's hilarious. But nobody can ever wrangle those women other than Andy Cohen. Mm-hmm. But I love that, like, you have this reality TV passion.
You know why I love my job so much? Because I combine my 2 greatest passions, reality TV and cooking. As I cook, I put my AirPods on, I turn on my iPad, and I watch all my reality crap.
It's amazing.
And the funny thing is, it keeps
multitasker over here.
Yeah, but it also keeps me more focused. Because people always want to talk to me at work, like kids or like whatever, and like it's so distracting. Although I'm used to it, it's a lot easier to just like focus on one task and like do whatever I have to do, you know? So like my husband never has to bitch about me watching it, except like he'll be like, "Oh, you're watching that shit again." I'm like, "Why is it bothering you? I have my AirPods on. I'm watching the iPad. I'm washing the dishes." Like, he's like, "Well, it's taking you a long fucking time to wash the dishes." And I'm like,
Well,
it's a very trivial moment in 90 Day Fiancé this week.
You're like, excuse me, I need a pause.
I watch all the shit shows.
I mean, I love reality TV. My boyfriend's the same way. He's always like, "Why are you watching this?" And then
They'll like secretly.
And it was $1 Million Listing.
Oh, $1 Million Listing is fantastic.
We were watching it for maybe hours, and I was kind of like getting like, "Oh my gosh, he's gonna notice that this is Bravo because the commercials are coming up." And he was just so invested in the show. And I'm like, we just watched Bravo for like 3 hours. And he was like, "No.
No, you did not."
But see, some of the shows are good. Well, to us, they're all good.
Well, my husband's also in sales. So, like, he loves that. We were watching, what was the one on Netflix? Sunset.
Oh, Selling Sunset. I never got into that because right when I started watching it was when everyone was saying it was like a hoax. So it was hard for me to
No, it's real. It's real. I talked to somebody who knew producers on it. It's real.
Really?
Yeah, it's real.
You all heard it here.
From what I heard, they really edited people to be who they aren't. Let me put it to you that way. In a bad sense. Like, they edited some people to be villains who are not in real life. But, I mean, it is what it is. Reality
That's
TV
why I couldn't do reality TV. I just don't know if I'd want to, like, I'm putting myself out there, I feel like, enough with this podcast.
For sure.
I don't know if I could go to that level.
Well, my husband always said to me, "Are you prepared for what's going to happen if you actually make it big?" Oh, he doesn't say if. He says when you make it big.
Big manifestations.
Yes. And he says, when you make it big, are you prepared? And I said to him, "Yeah, hell yeah." He said,
"Damn right."
He said, no. All your skeletons are coming out. I'm like, "Bring it on." I'm like, "What skeletons?" Like, I'm literally an open, I don't hide shit. You can say the worst thing about me and I'll be like, "Okay, guilty as charged." Like, it is what it is.
No,
you know
that's
what I mean?
how I feel too, but I definitely am the more sensitive one out of my sisters.
I am too.
I think there's just certain people, my immediate family or my sisters, if they say something to me that's so hurtful, it hurts way more than if I heard it from like a stranger or like
of
one of my
course.
friends. Because I care the most what you think.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know?
It's also like, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying about like integrity and authenticity. And like, I've turned off people on social who make me feel bad about myself. Like, when I look at their social and I notice that, like, I don't even know why it's making me feel bad. Like, not in a competitive way, but like, it's making me feel, I learned to turn it off.
Do you do the see fewer posts?
I do. Yeah, I don't unfollow. I just do see fewer posts. And then on Facebook, I'll take a break from the friendship. Mm-hmm. So my biggest thing is, I think I'm extremely sensitive, which is like, even some of my closest friends are like, "No, she's not." And then like my really close friends, she's like, "She's hypersensitive."
I think my friends hearing this right now are like, that's not true. You're not sensitive. But
yeah.
I totally.
Yeah, but like, you'll replay this conversation that you said something stupid in like 35 times before you go to bed.
Oh my, okay, wait, speaking to that point, this is hilarious. So I get my sister's, one of her friends, one of my friends. They live literally 2 blocks away from me. It's been so fun being downtown together. But I got in her car and I sat on her scarf and I was like, "F this scarf." Like, I was just so hot and I was in like an irritated mood. And Madeline looks at me, my sister, and she's like, "Taylor, that was so rude." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jen. I love your scarf," or something. And so then I go home that night
and you couldn't stop thinking about it.
I'm in bed, and this is the silliest thing. It's about a goddamn scarf. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Gosh, is Jen upset with me?" I'm looking at the ceiling. I literally text her. I'm like, "Hey, like, whatever." She goes, "What'd you say?" She goes, "I didn't even hear you say that."
Yep.
But
Same.
Yeah, I do that too. I have total anxiety like that.
Same. So I've been pretty open about this. This is one of my platforms. I've had anxiety disorder my entire life. I had my first panic attack when my mom was dying, like literally when she was at home with the hospice. And so it's taken me years of therapy to actually be able to address it as what it is and to be able to acknowledge it for what it is, but also like, I have the control. And it's so recent, realized what anxiety can do to our body. which is so important to know that about yourself, right? Like, because like, for instance, a few months ago, I started getting these horrible chest pains, like horrible, to the point where it would like travel up the side of my head. And I thought I was having heart attacks. Like I thought I was having like a heart attack or an embolism, because it literally felt like all my organs were being squeezed from the outside in by my ribs. Like that's how it felt, constriction. And I had an echo done. I had an abdominal aorta done. I had like CAT scans. I had and they're like, you're clean. You're fine. And so finally, like my therapist asked me, she's like, I think it's your vagus nerve. I'm like, come again? She's like, yeah. So there's a nerve basically, and it's your fight or flight response. And so she said, she's like, I think for so many months you've been in like flight mode, meaning like you just gotta like, you gotta work, that all of a sudden your body's like, whoa. And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing a lot. She's like, yeah, but you're not doing a lot is most other people's full-time job.
For sure.
Because like, I think when you work for yourself, you don't realize how much you're working. Somebody once told, like, there's that famous line where like, do what you love and you'll never feel like you're working a day in your life, right? But I'm an extremist in the sense that I'm really, really hard on myself. And I have this really incredible life coach that I'm working with. If you guys are interested in me, DM me. She's literally like saving my sanity and saves me from myself most days. And she said, she's like, you have this really old dialogue in your head and in your like mantra, which is bad. And it's just like, you need to work harder because you're not good enough, and you're not good except unless you work like 80-hour weeks and blah, 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 blah. She's like, that dialogue is fucking old. And you need to change that because it's also affecting your body image. Because like, you're like saying, instead of saying your body is beautiful and like have it like respond to that. And I think it's now like in the same sense for me with business that like I'm such a workaholic without knowing that I am, I guess, because I'm so hard on myself. Someone's like, no, I got to work harder. I got to work more. I got to work harder. I got to work more. And so I've had to really bring it back and be like, okay, I can only focus on one big task at a time. So like, for instance, my big task right now, other than like my day-to-day business, of course, is I'm starting a course, an online course that is launching for my founding members as we speak. And it'll probably be, I mean, by the time we go live with this podcast, it'll probably be out. And basically it's something that my followers have been asking me to do for ages. It's something that my friends have been asking me to do for ages. Like I started with cooking classes before I ever started with private chefing. And that's essentially how it all kind of rolled.
It all came full circle.
It did. And that's like the funny thing that I'm like, I'm good at what I do. I'm really good at, I think I'm good at being a leader to my girls. I'm good at like multitasking, but my strength is teaching. My strength is being able to teach people how to cook in a really approachable and a really non-anxiety way. Cooking brings people anxiety. And so the biggest thing was I was talking to this blogger friend of mine, Anne, and we hadn't talked in like 4 years. And she's like, I don't know how you can cook on camera. And she's like, the fact that you can cook and be on camera, that's amazing. I'm like, the craziest thing is that I never realized this, but the two places where people have the most anxiety, which is in the kitchen and in front of the camera, are the two places I never feel anxiety. And she says to me, that's your superpower.
Truly, that is.
I was like, that's pretty fucking cool.
You found it.
I never even thought about that.
Especially so open about having anxiety.
Yeah.
The fact that where you feel most comfortable is where others, shrivel up or, feel uncertain.
Totally.
I think that's definitely something, those moments, I think, to celebrate. Mm-hmm. And to kind of sit back and how we're talking, like, life is so busy. You always want to, be the best at what you can be. But truly, like, right now, you should just close your eyes and be like, I'm great at that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say celebrate because I've been really trying to work on that because I'm so tough on myself, like because I have such big dreams. And rewind 3 years ago when I got a phone call that they wanted me on Windy City Live, which was right when I started working with your sister. And I got a phone call, they wanted me on Windy City Live, and I was like, I couldn't even believe it. Like I literally, I remember I called my husband like, oh my God, how is this? I'm like, wait, I'm still fat from the baby.
And you right away just jump to like, yes. I mean,
right away.
But everyone does that.
Yeah,
Everyone
right away.
jumps to like whatever's in their brain.
Exactly.
Like, for the freak out mode.
Totally. But like, it was so fun and so easy. And of course I had much different energy then than I do now. Like I now experience, like I know where to blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of technicalities, but like you said, I mean, just this year I've been on TV 7 times, 6 times. I can't keep track.
Well, it's funny. Last year, it was 2019. You had said I've had 4 TV appearances, and my goal or my dream would be on the Food Network. And now let's just fast forward 2020, 7 TV appearances. I mean, or just you said just this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
like I can't remember, like
seriously,
5,
each
6
year you've just like your progression has shown.
Yeah, and so like I try and remind myself of that. I remember I called my therapist a year ago after I'd done another TV appearance. I think that was like my 4th TV appearance, and I said to her, "Is it normal that I don't feel anything?" And she said to me, because she's a badass and she thinks how I do, she said, it's because we're the kind of women that will never be satisfied. And she said, and that's a really good thing and that's a really bad thing. And you have to find your balance. And so I remember I listened to Howard Stern. I used to be like a diehard.
Oh, Howard Stern's my guy.
Yeah, I mean, master interviewer. Like nobody does celebrity.
His book is right over there.
I mean, I'm telling you, I love his interviews. And he said one time, he said, I don't remember who he was interviewing, but he said, it's like my biggest thing is I just never celebrated in the moment. And like for so many years, all I wanted to do was go to the next level, like be the biggest disc jockey and then be the biggest one in the world. And then like Sirius happened and be this and be the best interviewer or have the biggest celebrity on my show.
So how do you keep up?
How do you keep up? But he also said, I never stopped to celebrate. And I thought that was so interesting because I'm like, fuck, I don't stop to celebrate. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to go to Paris. You know what I mean? Well, we can't. But like, it could be like, just go to dinner with your spouse or like, fuck, take yourself out to dinner.
And to think that Howard Stern like didn't celebrate everything he's done.
Think about it. I mean,
Howard.
he made serious radio. He is one of the best interviewers of our time, and
I read his book before I did my first, and I did not live up to Howard, but
you know what?
He's the best.
But think about it though. Like, think about how, and I say this now and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, no, but you have so many more goals to achieve. Like, how do you celebrate? How do I not fucking celebrate? Like, I was telling you that like I got my first client, my private chefing client, I remember in the beginning of May 2017, by Memorial Day, which was roughly 4 weeks later, I had 6. But I've been working my ass off for so many fucking years.
And to that point,
and I've been like trying to, and it's always been like, okay, so this didn't work. All right, so this didn't work. All right, so this didn't work. All right. It's like, I've fallen. I've crumbled a lot, I've eaten my share of shit, so to speak. And I've also been lucky enough that I've been able to fire clients that didn't respect us or didn't appreciate what we can do. And at the end of the day, for me, it was so important to create a company that I wanted to be an employee of. I never want anybody to have to lie to me. If you're sick, you're sick. If you're hungover, you're hungover. Like I should also mention that like I have all girls who work for me. And that's like very rare in the culinary industry to have badass young chefs who work with each other and are not catty and are not competitive. I had people who came into my company with egos and they just walked right out the back door. Leave your ego at the door. There's no egos here. We're like literally a bunch of like sisters. Like I feel like they're like my little sisters and I'm like the older sister. And like
that's a big task. My older sister would probably agree.
It's a big task, but I hire girls who are like you, young, driven, really motivated, self-motivated. Most importantly. Girl. It's true.
I love the whole fact that it's women.
Yeah.
Was that something that was really important to you from the get-go?
I don't think it was important to me initially. It just kind of happened. My mission was not to have a woman a woman operated company, certainly woman owned. And, you know, there's this one girl that every time, there was a point in my life, 18 months into being a private chef, I was full-time and my chef was full-time. I didn't have time to cook for my own family. My biggest blessing, I'm going to cry.
Oh, girl.
My biggest blessing is my husband, because I remember during that time, I mean, and his parents, God bless them, they watched my kids. They picked them up, whatever they needed, but he was just fucking there. He gave me, my husband is rough on me, but loves me and loves what I do. And he busts my balls more than anybody, critiques my food more than anybody. Like, whenever we'd have friends over, like, they'd be like, oh my God, this shit's amazing. And then they all look over at my husband. He's like, yeah, it's okay. And they're like, you motherfucker.
He's like, actually, she made a way better chicken piccata.
Yeah, actually, this is shit.
But I love that, because I think that who
He
you're with
keeps it
should be
real.
he should be your biggest support, but also, like, not blowing, like, smoke up your ass.
That's exactly it. But he's my rock. And, like, when I fall or when I fail, he's there. Like, I remember I had one TV appearance. He will always tell me what I did or what I didn't do. And he'll sometimes be like, you know, I'll be like, I gotta tell you, that's not your most flattering angle, you know? And truth be told, TV is TV. And so he's like, I mean, the camera loves you, but not all your angles. I don't like truth, you know? And I'm like, that's why, you know, I literally drink Botox for breakfast, because, like,
I love to. So you said earlier how just authentic and open you are on your, like,
oh yeah,
on
embalm
Instagram.
me in Botox.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you literally filmed when you were getting
my lips.
Yeah, your lips.
Yeah.
And I had almost, like, I love that you share it, but I turn it off because I hate needles.
I know.
But I had to see the results. So I was like, you know, when you click through Instagram, I'm like trying to click so that I can.
You're like, oh, the needle.
100%. I waited till I could see, and I saw you were in the car. I'm like, okay, she's out of the seat.
She's fine.
She's fine. She survived it. And then I keep up with you. I think that's, again, why people love you being so real and sharing that. And
that means so much to me, because I feel like people just don't care.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like no one, like, I talk to a lot of Instagrammers, and like, I have so many DMs and this and that. I'm like, I have DMs, but, like, I don't have that many. And it's, like, really hard to grow on Instagram authentically if you're not spending all this time on it. And frankly, social media gives me so much anxiety when I have to dedicate so much time to it.
I think social media gives me anxiety too. There's so much to it, and it's like, oh, the caption, like, there's so many little things to think about. It's like, almost, it drives me up.
But that's why social media in itself, like, my goal is to make so much more money so that I can completely source out the analytics side of social media. Like, I still want to do my captions. There's this part that I still want to have control over, because I want to be authentic and have integrity. But at the same time, I need somebody to say, like, I need 15 captions from you so we can just schedule them out. You know, That's what I want. I want somebody to be able to say that, and I can just take an hour, write them out, and call it a fucking day. Because, like, at one point, I had so many balls in the air that I was like, oh, shit, I can't catch any of them. You know, they were, like, falling on my head. That's the truth. And
well, that's what happens when you have so many businesses and you're, like, killing it. So
I mean, I never, and again, there's that, like, negative dialogue. Like, I don't think I'm killing it. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm this, you know? And I always struggle with coming off as being cocky, arrogant, and confident. I think there's a very, like, fine line there.
There's such a fine line.
And I never wanted to be arrogant, and I never wanted to be, like, on an ego trip. But I know what the fuck I'm doing in so many things, and in other things I don't, you know? And, like, that's why when I teach or when I'm on TV, it's so natural and authentic for me, because I know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm not talking out of my ass.
For sure. I like how you said that you have your things that you're confident because you know what you're doing, but you also have things that you're not great at.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes people so drawn to, following you. And I hope that's how people think about me, eventually, because I feel like I definitely am an open book too. And I share, I definitely feel like I know certain things, and I'm confident about this podcast, and I'm confident about the amazing stories I'm sharing. But I know that, I can't I'm not gonna be able to do math for you.
Same.
I mean,
Same.
I have way bigger weaknesses I can share with you all, but you know,
No, same.
to
Same.
talk small, math is not my thing, or just I don't know. There's things I'm definitely insecure about, and I think it's so important to share that. I'm not saying everyone has to go out and stand on the rooftop and be like, I am the worst at this, or I hate myself for this. But I think just openly acknowledging that is so important.
That's actually a strength, and I learned that from Gary Vee.
Oh, Gary Vee.
Also a fellow Ruski.
Yes.
But Gary Vee always said, like, stop focusing on what you can't do and focus on what you can do. And that was actually, like, really, really inspiring to me because, like, for a really long time, he was one of the catalysts to me going off on my own. I read all his books. I listened to his podcast. I listened to his YouTube. I listened to Snapchat. I started Snapchatting because of him.
I mean,
did it all.
He's an energy booster the minute you start listening to him.
Yes.
It's like, he makes me want to just jump up and like start something.
So generally speaking, I think it's really important to know your weaknesses, but I also think it's really important to improve where you think you need to improve and delegate where you don't think you need to. You know what I'm saying? One of my chefs is going to basically start being one of the managers so that I can step away and do like more media stuff and like courses and like this whole thing is going to build out and I want to go national. And there's like a ton of things that I want to do. Like when I stopped going to the kitchen as much because in May, my clients wanted me at their house because they knew I only have, me personally, I have one client and they're celebrity clients. And so those are the only clients I take. My girls get the other clients. Just frankly, I don't have the time to, that's why I only have one client. And all my other days, you know, they're spent.
Can you spill the beans?
I cannot. I have an NDA.
I knew there was going to be an NDA involved.
There's an NDA. Actually, all my girls have NDAs as well. All my girls are background checked. They all have NDAs and they all have non-competes with me. NDAs are to protect our clients and to protect me and to protect them, frankly.
Does that almost frustrate you, though, when it comes to, like, promoting?
Yes.
Because I feel as though that could be something right now you could be like, no.
But there's very few clients that there's very few clients that make me sign an NDA. But, yeah, like, it sucks. It sucks because some of them have really big Instagram followings, huge, and they don't want to spill the beans. Like, I'm so blessed that these people who are, like, the people you think are the hardest are the best people to work with and have the most support for me and
I'm
celebrate
like a stalker and go through like
you'll never know
celebrities.
You'll never know. I promise you'll never know.
I love that for you though. That's so amazing and inspiring. Just to think that this whole thing started from how you love to write. I love how you said that you're a writer first and then a chef.
Mm-hmm. I started the blog when I was right in the heart of corporate world. So Girl in the Kitchen will be 7 years old this year. And the sexual over actually. But before
Lucky
that
number
I had
7.
I know, but before that I had Kiss. Keep It Simple Stupid. Years ago on Blogger Pro. And the only reason I did it was because I really wanted the cathartic feeling of writing about my childhood and my mom. I really needed that. And it was really important for me to share it because there's a lot of foods that, like Jewish chicken soup, it's not just soup to me. It's my mom. It's like my mom's recipe. It's my grandmother's recipe. It's, you know, my mom's like what you call pot roast. Like those are all things that my mom used to make. And I really needed to tell that story, you know, and I always said that my food has a story to tell. All my food.
Just like you do. I love that.
Apparently I have a story to tell, yes. This cooking class, basically, where I'm teaching the modern, disorganized day home cook how to, A, cook a variety of meals, B, not have a disaster in your kitchen when you're cooking, and C, come into the kitchen with confidence and not spend 3 hours there, you know?
Food done right. That's your line.
Good food done right. It's called the 4-step cooking method. And so basically it is my unique method of how you can cook anything with organization, with skill, with ease, and with confidence without ever having the fear of burning another meal again. Which I think at the end of the day, what is everybody's greatest fear? It's not it's going to take a long time. It's that it's going to taste like ass. or that you're going to burn it.
And that you'd spend all that time.
Yeah.
Mila, last weekend I was so excited to make chili for my boyfriend and my roommate for like watching football, and literally I love chili. It's my go-to, and I've never made it before. And so I asked my dad because he's a chili guy. I'm like, he says all the ingredients, and so I make the chili, right? Perfect. I add a little flair. I add spicy Italian sausage. My dad's like, wow, okay, that was a new one. But then guess what I messed up? The mac. I literally overboiled the noodles to the point where when we...
Oh, you did chili and mac?
Yes, but literally, thank God they were separate, because when we touched
they fell apart.
I mean, how embarrassing that I can't even cook noodles. But then I nailed the chili.
I mean, you know what? You nailed the hardest part.
But, I mean...
But this is why, like, one of my
noodles.
biggest tips is use your fucking timer.
See,
like,
okay, I don't measure, I don't use time. So
I don't
that's
measure. I
that's
do
where mess
use
up.
timers because, look, here's the deal. At the end of the day, when you have 19 things going in the kitchen, which we usually do, when especially at events, when we're cooking for parties or whatever, you're multitasking. That's one of the best things about being a good chef. You know how to multitask, right? So when you're doing that, A, you need to set timers. B, I always tell people, get comfortable with using meat thermometers. Because everybody's biggest fears are undercooking their food. And in reality, most home cooks are overcooking their food, right? And like, everybody's always like, they're like, God, how do you make your salmon taste so good? All right. Ready, listeners? Here's what I do.
She's breaking it down. The perfect salmon.
99% of the time for like my family, for my friends, when I just need it fast. Soy sauce, lemon, garlic powder.
When in doubt,
Zest it out! Jesus fucking Christ, you're literally studied me. I'm actually going to be making t-shirts. That's like my
God.
next thing.
I need that because I have to tell you, Mila, when I was watching that Windy City Live. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
said it so
I
much.
said that to them
When
on
you
Windy
said
City
it,
Live.
and, like, it just brought so much joy, like just your mannerisms, how you said it.
When in doubt,
So,
zest
I mean,
it
but
out.
honestly, you have such a zest for life.
Oh.
Do you like how I did that too?
That's why I love my lemon zest, dude. Like, even all my chefs, they'll always do like videos when like at the end of the how do you know you're at a girl in the kitchen party, and they like pan to just like a bowl of zested lemons and limes. They're like, this is how you have a bunch of zested limes and lemons that you don't know what to do with.
I didn't know how to zest a lemon, so I will tell you, I did HelloFresh for a little bit, and they told me to zest, like, I think it was like the lemon, and I literally was like,
What?
I skipped the step.
It's not just you. And that's why, like, so these courses, the cool thing about them is there will be lives in addition to them, because I'm not trying just to build like a course. I'm literally trying to build a community. And with this course comes a Facebook. And so with that Facebook comes not only other people who are taking the class, but culinary coaches, which is going to be like, oh crap, I forgot this, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to like DM me. Now you have like several people who can
It's
come to
almost
you.
like The Voice, like how there's different like coaches.
Yeah. You have like
Wait, I
culinary
love that.
coaches, and you have like, you know, give us a break. Like, we might not get back to you right away, but I call it like you're going to have a hot seat. So like somebody can be in the hot seat every single month, meaning like one person, and they get like 1 hour to talk to like me or whoever the culinary coach is that day. And the classes that you're taking, they're pre-recorded courses. So you could literally, like for knife skills is course number 1, because you have to know. Knife skills, you have to know. Knife skills
All
are
my knives
speed.
are very dull.
Great.
So that's like issue number 1.
Issue number 1, go get your knives sharpened.
Either hide the knives or buy new knives. I
Yes.
don't know which one.
Go get them. You don't need expensive knives. I mean, honestly, you do not need expensive knives. You just need knives that are sharp, number 1. Number 2, it makes you fast, it makes you more confident, and it makes you more efficient when you have knife skills. So let's say you're learning how to like slice an onion, dice a cucumber, whatever. Just put the iPad right in front of you and your course is right there. And you can rewind as many times. You know what I mean? So it's cool because of things like that. And it's also, there's going to be extras that come out after the core class, and they're going to be so cheap to purchase, to like add on, but they're going to be so worth it, because it's going to be like I'm going to do an entire course in Instapot cooking.
I know you love your Instapot.
I do. And I thought I'd hate it, but I do love it. I do. Or like, we didn't even talk about it, but like keto, like low carb and keto is like really big to me, And so I want people to know that. I want people to learn that. I want them to understand that it's not a fad. This is something that's actually been around for a really long time, but it's really been like suffocated by a lot of the food industry because there's a lot of money to be made from not the low carb industry,
And you said too, like, you love butter.
Yeah, I love
butter.
butter.
Don't stay away from butter.
No.
So, because I did keto for a little bit and I loved it because I love my salami, I love my cheese. Give me a charcuterie board. I don't even want the cracker. I want to just wrap the salami around the cheese. Like, I can do that. But like I used to but then I would get like hangry and then I would get headaches. So I think I never got past that
yeah, you never got
ketosis.
past the keto flu. And the reason people get that, it actually has nothing to do with what you think it is. Ketose, the process of ketosis is an extremely dehydrating process. So in order to avoid that, you need to be hydrated with electrolytes. So if you have the keto flu, you just need to make sure you're hydrating yourself with electrolytes, like regular salt is an electrolyte. Or there's
I was gonna say, when you saw electrolyte, I was picturing like me at my soccer game when I was 5 with like a big old Gatorade.
Yeah, except Gatorade has a bunch of other crap in it, right? So yeah, I mean, I think the courses are going to be really great. I'm really excited.
I'm excited for them. Well, I'm excited even if I'm not a part of them. I mean, I'm sure you'll be giving, updates. So then hopefully you do more courses.
For sure.
I need to learn to cook. I mean, I do enjoy it, but I have that anxiety that we talked about of, the cleanup one. Also, just the whole process I literally use every single utensil.
Yeah, and like that's because so I think the biggest thing is like you just have to figure out how to prepare yourself so that you're actually in control and the menu is not in control of you. And then while shit's cooking, you clean up as you go. It's a very easy, and people are like, well, it's easy for you. Okay, well, true story. Like accounting was probably easy for an accountant. And I think, and I'm just like a moron with it. Okay. But the truth of it is that I heard a wonderful quote. Anything new will always be hard. Once it's not new, it's no longer hard. It could be challenging. It could be, I think everybody can learn anything.
I love that.
Because my goal is for the people that take my class to feel confident because they now know the technique and they know where to go with it. And I personally think that the amount of joy that you can get from cooking, there's something really magical, and maybe this is what I'll leave this podcast on. There was a magic that happened with cooking when I watched my mom and my grandma. It, to this day, makes me feel ooey gooey inside. And it's the same magic that I get when I want to cook with my daughter, and it always ends up in shit. But
it was starting so emotional.
But it's true. There's like this really big magic. And I think we've lost that because of convenience and because of time. And I think we've really lost sight of what healthy is. I mean, frankly, I don't tell my kids to shy away from sweets or from whatever, but I try and have those sweets be homemade, and if I'm using sugar, it's a real sugar. And if I'm using, sometimes I'll do substitutes, but
I had to try your Nutella brownie.
Oh, the Nutella brownies are epic.
It looks unreal. Seriously though, Mila, I could talk to you clearly.
Same.
This has just been so fun. I feel like I'm literally just sitting down with a friend. So thank you for being so open and sharing just so much about your life that, I'm sure some people didn't even know about, which I'm just so honored that you sat down with me.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested, please, please, please follow me on Girl and the Kitchen. I'm Girl and the Kitchen everywhere.
Yes.
Instagram, girlandthekitchen.com. And make sure, if you guys are interested in these courses, just send me a DM on Girl and the Kitchen, on Instagram, on TikTok, email me, whatever. I'm very easy to get a hold of. I'd love to help anybody. And if you want me to be a star in your kitchen, if you're local in Chicago and you need a private chef, make sure you guys help.
I love that. Well, I might have to have you soon. Just over for you.
Yes, I'll cook for you.
Thank you, Mila.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Where are you going? It's your girl Taylor. I'm back. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I know you want more, so subscribe to the Taylor to You podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I also encourage you to make this podcast tailored to you. Visit t2upodcast.com to submit your questions, topics of interest, types of guests, really anything. Just say hi to me. And I hope even your own story, because I'm eager to hear and share it. Let's have some fun. We'll talk soon.